story about Jung, it's all part of the dream. You know, actually that's my point about all of this, is that the whole thing is all part of the dream. If it can't be recorded, maybe there's something to be in the now with, you know, which is actually really great for me to remember. So this woman had her dream, and she was being gifted this scarab beetle, and Jung had been hearing this tapping at the window while the woman was giving her dream. And this was in Switzerland in winter, you know, and of course the window was closed, and so he finally got up. You know, everything is significant in Jung's lexicon. So he goes over and he opens the window, and lo and behold, in flies a scarab beetle. And it's a gold-green color, and he catches it, and he hands it to the woman who's having this dream, and says, "Here's your scarab." And she just loses it, you know. I mean, she prior to that moment, she had been highly intellectual and very like, well, I'm doing this, but I'm not really believing in it. And after that moment, it completely let her penetrate into all the depths of what she'd been holding. She just let go of all resistance. This is very good counsel. You know, this is all for all of us that are, you know, a little bit too much in our heads, and, you know, maybe we need to be able to drop into what is the rest of the story that I'm holding? What is the dream that I'm winding around? This is very good counsel. I really do think that the crops, one of the things the crop circles is doing is that it's giving us counsel. So what is the dream that we hold that can help us get to the root of our problems and make real progress? Is this crop circle counseling us to go past the intellect and face our emotional depths? Can we bring the light of the sun to the rotting waste we hold, letting it reform us into a new generation? Okay. So maybe you can already hear that in this talk what I'm doing is I'm providing the dream that's coming through me, you know. Please, I want you to make sure that you honor your own dream. What I'm doing, this is what is coming through me, and I'm sharing it because I'm finding a lot of real wonder and value in it. And but it is not the only way to look at it. It is not the right way to look at it. This is a way to look at it. And because of my own training, you know, where I've been looking at these things for many, many years and really wondering about them, and I love like just collecting all the information about everything that's happening around the whole phenomenon, all of it, as much as I can get. And then I've also had long-term research into esoteric studies and, you know, esoteric numbers, math, science, sacred geometry, things like that. And also just a really long-term personal spiritual investigation. So that's the lens that this story that I'm telling is coming through here. And hopefully you'll enjoy it. So, but please honor, you know, I mean, everybody has their own lens, and honor what comes through for you. So, Einstein, always good to invoke Einstein, right? So we all know this quote, you know, he said, the most important question a person can ask is, do you know it? What is it?
Is the universe friendly?
Yes, is the universe a friendly place, you know? So can the crop circles help us answer that? How do we stay present in the face of controversy and disinformation and disappointment and paradox? You know, this light that that we're standing under, it's very intense and it's casting a very dark shadow. The fact that that disk can be both a sun disk and a dung ball, you know, shows how easily that the sacred symbols can be usurped and manipulated, and this has been happening throughout our culture. You know, what should be sacred and valid has been taken over by the fearmongers, you know, for mind control and population control and the fearmongers' agenda. And And on the other hand, you know, the fact that this is both the sun and a dung ball could be that it's counsel about fearlessness. It may actually be giving us a different, you know, even to take the story of the fearmonger's agenda, that rot, and hold that up into the light, and let us see what regenerative story wants to come out of that. That'd be really good. So I saw this fun little reframe, you know, at one moment as my mind tends to do, it like pulls all kinds of ridiculousness out of the air. And I saw that the word dung can be transformed by taking you, my projections on you, and turning them towards me, towards I, and dung becomes
ding.
Ding! Dung becomes ding! And there's something about ringing bells that has been really, really important to me lately, so I like that. So it's important to let the multifaceted dream surface into consciousness. Dream imagery allows the unconscious to speak and the hidden to reveal itself. In dreams, all the dimensions are intermingling. The dream, this dream that we're doing, it's fractal. I'm going to go into that. It's very precise, you know, so listen to what comes up for you. And it's non-arbitrary. What's happening actually is important. So I'll be showing in this presentation how the crop circles are helping us see duality in reality and find counsel to let it bring us back to presence for our own transformation. So it is my thesis, maybe I'll write a book, that the narrative surrounding the whole crop circle phenomenon, the whole thing, is depiction, counsel, and activation that can be resourced for our evolution at this time. Ding! And I really mean the whole narrative. I want to address a piece of this crop circle phenomenon right at the beginning, and that is the reality of hoaxing, because it does exist. Hoaxing is a part of this dream. Hoaxing in the sense of that there are crop circles that are man-made. We know this for a fact, and there's history around that, research that's done on that, and there are very interesting people that that are involved in it, and so it's part of this dream. So the question, you know, what happens to your consciousness when you are confronted with the thought, man-made? You know, what happens there? This is a really good question. It's like, do you automatically just go, oh well, dismiss this, you know, do we take the word man-made and completely, you know, erase all the magic? This is really good to question. So how do we come to terms with that, with the fact that there are man-made ones? And we don't even know. I mean, some people, among the hoaxers, they say they're all man-made. There are some people that say that they are all man-made. And I don't believe that. I certainly don't believe that. But how do we come to terms with this? So what we can be certain of, what we can absolutely certain of, is that the numinous is involved, even with the hoaxing. So there are lots and lots of stories, and actually I have my own that I can testify with, that in the fields, and you know, each of you can probably access something in your own field, in your own memory, where you have touched that there is something way beyond that is active here, and that's unexplainable, and you don't know how that happened. And it's so easy, that it's so interesting how we can forget. I mean, even with my own one that was like, you know, knocked me for a loop, you know, it was like so undeniable. And yet I still can go into this place where, you know, sometimes I just forget, you know, and start to get doubtful. So, but even with the hoaxers, there's so many stories of them being out in the fields and, you know, seeing strange shadows, or being confronted with balls of light, or having time anomalies, you know, where they suddenly look up and it's several hours later. There's a story of one group that went in and they all synchronized their watches, and when they came out it was 15 minutes earlier than when they'd gone in. You know, it's, I mean, you know, what do you do with these stories? You know, the numinous is involved. You engage with something like this, especially in that English landscape, which is, got so much going on in it, and you will be confronted with something other. So honor humanity's place in this. Honor it. That's a big deal. If it is, you know, if some of these are hoaxed, whoa, wow, you know, pretty amazing that this imagery is coming through and is being so powerful and is doing so much. So, part of the awakening is seeing how we've subjugated ourselves and given away our power, you know, personally, collectively, fractally. Okay, let's go on to another slide. What do you think?
Yeah.
Yeah, there we go. If I can get it to move, there we go. Haha, this is a very old one. Yeah. 1991, this was a seminal crop circle at Barbary Castle. And I've put here, this is a alchemical figure, alchemical painting from a book. Can't remember the name of the book, I should have written that down. So the dream, this dream that we are subject to, it's alchemical. And I want to talk a little bit about alchemy, because the crop circles speak in alchemical language. It's an alchemical language that deliberately, it encodes instruction. It employs symbolism and metaphor and association, parallels, paradox, and it has visual, verbal, and nonverbal, obviously, multiple depths of meaning that catalyze transformation. So in alchemy, you know, alchemy precipitates knowledge or substance from one dimension into another, right? So that's the hope in the alchemical work, is to be able to actually get knowledge or even substance to precipitate into this dimension. Or from one paradigm to another. All the different ways we find knowledge and meaning are paradigms or dimensions. All those different ways, they're paradigms, or they're actually dimensions. And they have vortices of intersections where one can make a shift. So one can learn sequentially and linearly. We've all done that for a very, very long time. But some points have many vortices that are coming together. And when you have those vortices come together, it enables deep knowledge to drop through. So this crop circle alchemy invokes meaning and energy and activation through all these alchemical devices like poetry and puzzle and multiple layers and implication and myth and magic and association and even physics and geometry and number and the unknown, you know, something about the unknown. All right, this was that date that we all just went through. This was the 2012 12/21 date. It's a solar system. You know, you have here a solar array here. This is the sun in the center. You've got orbits around it, planets on each of the orbits, and it's very clear. Even the third rock from the sun is Earth, and it has an extra little ring around it for the moon. And when they figured out when the planets would be in this particular array, it was the December 21st, 2012 date. You know, and it's so interesting. Here's Earth. You know, you had Sun, obviously, Mercury, Venus, and Mars was over here. Right through that, you know, it's almost like we're lining up with, this is Avebury over here. Like Avebury is representing galactic center. I like this. Wow. And there were several other, beyond Avebury, 1 or 2 or 3 other crop circles that actually were referencing a galaxy. And, you know, very interesting. I don't have those in this talk, but you know, they're all lining up to be seen. So we have this mystical date in this mystical landscape, and that date has now come and gone. How are you doing? You know, a little bit of a check-in, a little bit of disappointment maybe, or You know, just what's going on? You know, have you noticed being confronted by anything? You know, does the passing of this date as non-eventful, does that disappoint you? You know, it's like, it's something to consider. I mean, or conversely, have you noticed a shift? Have you noticed a shift in your own consciousness? You know, have you noticed any increase in synchronicity, for instance? You know, I can really testify to that one. That's amazing. Have you been confronted by any old patterns that aren't working anymore? Personally, collectively, are we being confronted by the collective patterns that aren't working anymore? With more contrast? I think that's definitely happening. Were you watching and open to the light of the galaxy to flood your consciousness? You know, and what happened with that? And now what happens? You know, if you actually did get something on that date, if you actually did feel, I know a lot of people that felt unbelievable amount of energy, and you know, and again, I have my own testimonial there, but now it's passed, now that date is gone, and you know, what's happening with that? You know, all this is all really important to be aware of. Do you feel silly or heartened? So certainly on that date, huge numbers of people focus their intentions for a shift in consciousness, and we know that focus is powerful. Beyond what may have actually been available in that cosmic arrangement of Earth, Sun, galactic center, and then on the other side, Orion, what else was out there? Jupiter, Pleiades, you know, all of those other ones that we tend to, I found out, our galaxy is fractal, duh, who knew? We have this little minor galaxy going on out here where our sun is orbiting around Orion and the Pleiades, Taurus, Sirius, there's another one that starts with an A, can't remember at the moment, that is all out here, that we're winding around here, and all of that is winding around the galaxy. And that direction is actually called anti-galactic center. Who knew? So, so interesting, because it seems like what was happening for this refocus was getting us to look away from all of the warring, silly, kind of myopic consciousness that's kept us out here focused away from actually that we have this huge galaxy that could be feeding us. And in the workshop, again, in the workshop there's going to be a lot more, I'll go more into what that story is, because it's really interesting. The mythology there that happened in the night sky is really, really, it's a good story. So we'll go deeper into that then. So, this crop circle shifted after a few days. They came down and did a little bit more on it. So that 2012 date, that iconic 2012 date, really has galvanized our attention. And what happened, you know? Even though the big date's passed, the effect, the galactic effect, is continuing to impress upon us. It is still active. And so pay attention to what's going on. So there's one researcher who talks about, and actually the Mayans talked about this too, that the new era that we're now in, we're in the new Baktun, the 13 Baktun, is going to be dominated by space, by our relationship with space and space weather. And in fact, the sun, you know, this part of what's happened here in this crop circle, when they came back, they expanded the sun. The sun is now over the orbits of Mercury and Venus, you know, Mercury the head, Venus the heart, and that expansion of light from our own personal center of our solar system is helping us to see with much more depth what are we thinking and what are we feeling, basically. And really important. And that with this refocus towards galactic center, beyond galactic center, there are these things in the galaxy called magnetars, and one of them rang. They're these very, very fast, very powerful, not dead stars. You know, when they call them dead, but you know, they're clearly not dead. And one of them put out a pulse in 2004, and it immediately like spread throughout the galaxy, even though it was beyond galactic center, like, you know, over, like, it was like 50,000 light years away. But this thing rang through the galaxy, and it actually, the galaxy vibrated. It actually vibrated with a note, and that note was F sharp. Woo! Do you believe that? Unbelievable. So we are being rung, and you know, part of what's happening with the sun and the Earth, actually with the Earth, with all of this galactic space weather, is that the Earth is dropping her magnetic shield. The magnetosphere, great word, is actually, she's going, ugh, and she's just like drinking it in. She's actually, it's like her crown chakra is opened up. The vortex that's on her North Pole has actually gotten wider, and so that the energy really just goes right into her earthy heart, you know, and this is just all really amazing. So, you know, how do we, when the magnetic field drops, also that really messes with our consciousness. You know, when the astronauts went out into space and they weren't under the influence of the magnetic field, after a few days they came back and their minds were scrambled. There was one astronaut that they had to go out and get him home because he just couldn't function anymore. He was out, it was really dangerous, and they went and got him back after he'd been out there for 2 weeks, and he actually had lost his memory, like, permanently. So we got a big blank slate here that got laid down next to this. You know, is part of what's happening that the magnetosphere is wobbling, and you know, we're needing to really rewire what's going on here. Dropping the shields, letting the information in. You know, and it's a big unknown. A lot of people here watching, though, if those are people. I don't know. Okay, and then we have had this reference of the magnetic field or the being rung like a bell. You know, so these were in the same year. No, these were in following years, subsequent years, but the same field. So, and it seemed to have been getting closer. You know, when the bells are rung, you know, when the vibration is coming through, stuff gets loosened up, and things can get realigned. This is one of my very, very favorite crop circles. I love this one. This was at a place called Uffington Castle, where the Uffington horse is that's carved into the landscape, the ancient Neolithic Uffington horse, dragon, something on the hill. So this talk is about the Great Awakening, and I really like starting with this one, or having it close to the beginning, because for me this means notice your projections. You know, one of the things I like to do when I first see a crop circle is that I actually will describe what I see just really plainly out loud, so because it actually starts to help me get meaning out of it. So, you know, here we have a ring, and there's a circle, a dot, that's inside the ring, and it's off-center. And it's got these lines that are coming out of it, and then up above it, or, you know, on its center axis, centered with that, all these projective lines, is a reflector that's the same image, really, as the dot, that is got concentric circles coming back, radiating out of it. So, and the interference pattern that happens because of these projected rays and the concentric circles creates this very complex pattern that you see here. Okay? So, to me, what this is saying, if I were to take that, okay, well, you know, if there's a message here, the message is, for me, you know, notice that you are projecting, and what you're projecting is actually a reflection of yourself in some way. And it may look very complex and like not like yourself, you know, and it's very easy to start going out into one's projection and, you know, every time you come to an intersection point, you can choose something different and get pretty lost, you know, make a very, very complex story, for instance, out of what your projection is. But however, at any moment, you know, if you get lost, you can just follow a straight line and it will take you right back to center from anywhere in here. It'll just go zoom. It's almost like, you know, if you start to look at this in 3D, you know, I have this feeling like this is a gravity well. You can just drop right into gravity and come right back to center. So notice your projections. Notice if your projection you hold feels contracted or expansive. You know, back to that Einstein quote. Einstein didn't say, "Is the universe a friendly place or not?" That was not the quote. He said, "Is the universe a friendly place?" He didn't say, "Is the universe a hostile place?" He didn't say that, you know, that was the most important question. Is the universe a hostile place? No. He said, "Is the universe a friendly place?" So that question of how is it that we are approaching our projections, you know, are we looking at them from the point of view, is this a hostile place? Or are we looking at it from the point of view, is this a friendly place? And that a priori come from is significant about how what it is that you're going to be able to get out of it. So this is also an old one from 1991, same year as the Barbary Castle triangle with the 3. Not too far from there. Okay, so this was the design of the original crop circle. This avenue with circles along it and a key and some extra, they call these grape shot. Anyway, so this fellow, John Martineau, who publishes the little wooden books, beautiful, I recommend them, especially if you're into sacred geometry. He did some research about this particular crop circle, and he took just the circle, the part with the circles in the avenue, and he started putting rulers on it and finding the tangents, and you know, there were 2 ways that he looked at it. One was with projected tangents and the other was repeating radii. So in this first one, you know, he took from the center of this little dot at the end of this alleyway and he drew a line that tangented, apparently, you know, it tangented this one, and this white one from both sides. And then he took another spot, he found another spot which was at the edge of this circle, projecting out that way, and that this circle and this circle were tangented from that point of view, right there. And so what I know from this research is that if you had been standing in the field, in the middle of this little crop circle right there, and looking down that alleyway, this little tiny tuft of grass, the white part is the standing parts, the black has been laid down. So this little tuft of grass would have eclipsed this circle and this circle. You would not have been able to see them. That's, you know, that is just counsel. That's just sheer counsel. Where you stand, how you project, what you're looking at, you know, a little something, you know, a little grain of sand in your eye, you know, a little something could totally make your view of the universe be limited. And in fact, that's what we've been under for millennia, is that our point of view has been really limited by, you know, by obstacles in our way. Projection is everything. And to know that there are likely many more ways of looking at something, or looking at anything, you know, that brings a lot of humility and excitement, and also, you know, creative spark and intuition, and perhaps even leaps of consciousness. So let me show you one other thing that he did with this crop circle, because this is amazing. He then took just the circles, and he found that they could all fit together in this little figure. You know, some of them are repeated, you know, like this circle's been repeated twice, this little circle's been repeated, you know, but they all fit together. Every single one of these circles fits together into this little gem. And it's like looking through a kaleidoscope. It's like, I never would have come up with this. This is like so out of the box for me to consider that you know, from this original crop circle to get to this, you know, that's a real leap of vision. And that's like an alchemical distillation of something, you know. He stood far enough away. He got enough perspective and enough imagination that, you know, this kind of gem crystallized out of that crop circle. You know, could that be possible for us with every moment? Wow. This one took place in Solano County, not too far away, in 2004. And this particular arrangement of the elements, you know, the large circle with the two on the outside, and I love how it's climbing out of this these electrical power grid communication towers, whatever they are. It's like boom, and then it just takes a left-hand turn and does this amazing, amazing figure. And this particular geometry is one that it's the triptych geometry, you know, with the large center. The two circles on either side fit. Their diameters are the radius of the center circle. So, and I've got some more about this in a moment. So, we're now going into a little bit more detail. That triptych geometry, it's something that you see in a lot of sacred sites. And for instance, all over the world, Mexico, Egypt, Bali, Rome, Thailand, you know, this is really, really typical in a lot of churches. And so what is it? It obviously has meaning, you know, with the duality, it means, it obviously has something to do with opposites, you know, union of opposites, being able to hold the paradox. And that the larger in the center, the larger hole, the portal in the center, allows you to take them both in. So, this one, I think this one is actually really, really key. This was in Chilbolton in the year 2000. It was, you know, you can see that it's got this same kind of geometry referenced in it, right? And this, these circumferences are, these diameters are the length of the radius. So I want to tell you a little bit more about this, but I'm not going to go into huge detail about this significance. That's that crop circle. This was the following year in the exact same location. It's important to know. The exact same location where it first came down was the following year. This crop circle came down, which is the reply to the Arecibo message that was sent out in 1974 by Carl Sagan and a team. And they sent out this message into the stars, you know, a bitmapped binary computer code, and with information about our numbers and atomic elements, table of elements, nucleotides, you know, the little schematic of what we look like. The thing is that, and then it came back. The following year it came back, and these were slightly, I mean, look at that. That's a little different schematic. That's an interesting, I don't know if you can see that from where you're sitting. Looks like a little alien. Big head, little body. There's more like a big man. But the point here is these two pieces. This was the bottom of the return. This was supposed to be a schematic of the Arecibo telescope. What is it? Radio telescope that actually sent the message out originally. And it's monodirectional. It's, you know, it's like it's only going out. Very interesting. Coming back, we have this figure, and let's look at that figure. They're telling us this is how we sent the message out. This is they're telling us this is how we sent our message back. So let's look at how they are communicating, because that device is really primary. They're communicating through understanding that duality emerges from the whole, and that it's fractal. Those dualities, split, 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 fractal.